Hey everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to take a look into a game that is being called a competitor for The Sims 4. Also, look at my new shirt. I got this at the Bastille concert that I went to on Saturday. If any of you also went to it, let me know down below. I had a great time. I love Bastille, so it was everything I'd hoped for. So there's this new game, Paralives, that's coming out. I don't think it has a set date yet. I've been hearing some people saying it's going to come out 2021, 2022. It seems very early in development, and it seems fairly promising. I've heard some people on Twitter, YouTube, and some other social media platforms talking about this as being a competitor or a future competitor for the Sims game. I've heard some people say it's going to be a competitor for The Sims 4, and while I do believe The Sims 4 has a few more years left in it, I'm not really sure if The Sims 4 will be its true competitor. I've heard some people saying they feel like maybe more The Sims 5 will have to compete with it. I think The Sims 4 at least has another 2 years. With that in mind, I do believe this will definitely be more of a competitor for maybe The Sims 5 or whatever the Max's team has planned next. With that said, though, I just wanted to jump in, look at some of the videos they have on YouTube and kind of react to them and kind of give my thoughts on what's going on, how I feel about Paralives. Alright, so this is the official Paralives channel. They've already have 45.9k followers. That is quite a lot. But they only have these 5 videos right now. The first one we're going to look at is their most recent one, and that's the customizable beds. Hmm. Oh, interesting. Great. So this is actually a really interesting concept that I kind of like, and I also have some drawbacks on it. To begin with, to being able to stretch beds sounds good, but also at the same time, and the only reason I say that is because how often do you find a bed frame with the same sheets you had when you were a child in an adult sized bed? It's very rare. That off the bat, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's a cool feature. It's not very realistic in the sense of a life simulator, but I do think it's really fun that you can be able to do that. The thing I'm most interested here is actually the ability to make a bunk bed. I'm wondering what you can and can't do. However, I'm wondering if you'd be able to put a desk under there rather than another bed if you just want to have a lofted bed. But that's it though, I do think this is really cool. This is definitely something I think even if The Sims 4 introduces bunk beds, I don't think it'll be in this capacity. And like I said, I think being able to turn a single into a bunk bed's really cool. I'm not super interested in the customizable bed in the sense of stretching it, because like I said, I just don't find that extremely realistic, if that makes sense. But it is a cool feature, like very creative. Here we have the resize, stack, and flip objects. Oh, once again, just kind of like the bed being able to stretch the desk. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that light. Oh, those shelves are interesting to say the least. I'm also questioning this curve with the. Ooh, I like that. That's another cool feature. Once again, I'm questioning the realism. Okay, I do like that a lot, actually. Okay. Okay. So overall, I think this idea of being able to stretch the desk I think it's kind of cool and be able to swap what side the the drawers are on, the cabinets, if you will. I think it's a cool concept. It's not something I feel like I personally need. However, it's one of those things where I'm like, that's kind of cool. One thing I saw on Twitter was people talking about the clock moving, and that's like just like another thing that I'm like, yeah, that's cool. I don't personally need it in my game, but that's not something I'm like pissed about. Some concerns I have to begin with. This lamp, just kind of like with the bed, being able to change it. Once again, I'm like, how realistic is it to find a small lamp that looks exactly like your large lamp? It's like one of those things where I'm like, yeah, it's a cool concept, and I think it looks cool, and maybe in a game it does kind of make sense, but in the Sims 4 buy and build mode, I'm kind of like, yeah, no, that's a little bit more realistic to life. That even when you have a matching set, that they're not exactly identical. For example, like the lamps we got with vampires. When they're putting things on the shelf, something knows there isn't a lot of snapping happening, and in The Sims, maybe I'm just so used to snapping in The Sims 4 that not seeing it happen, I'm like, and it makes me wonder, does this game offer just a little too much free will and too much um like there isn't a lot of natural snapping and stuff, and that kind of concerns me because as annoying as snapping is, it really does help when building, because if there isn't something snapping, or if you're like, I often use bb dot move object in The Sims 4, and because I'm not using the snapping, sometimes I'll place things and they'll look fine, and then I'll look at them later and go like, ooh, that looked fine from this angle, but not this fine. I'll have to go back and snap it and then adjust it. That's something I'm kind of worried about here, that I'm not seeing a lot of snapping, and I'm wondering how that's going to affect building. But overall, I think the desk is cool. Um, I'm not sure, once again, how we like desks generally kind of have a standard size, of course. There are bigger desks and smaller ones, but they're usually also designed differently. Like if this was a smaller desk, the drawers probably wouldn't be that size. So just like it's things like that I'm like, this is a cool concept, but I feel like I don't know, there's something off maybe. Or something about it that when giving us all this control, we're sacrificing maybe realism. I don't know. Now, this one I saw on Twitter, I thought this was kind of cool. Once again, I have a few things to say about it, but I think generally I'm very interested in this. So what they're doing is they're creating their own lots and establishing a price to them, which I think that's kind of cool. I think that's a little bit more realistic to life. I am wondering what the rest of this world looks like, or what if there are multiple worlds in this world. I don't know too much about this game. Someone on Twitter was talking about it's an open world. I'm not really sure what that means in this concept if we only have this one world. Um, I do think it's cool that you can create your own lots and edit the size. In The Sims 4, generally, the lots don't bother me too much. There are a few times where I can definitely see they're going for some specific idea. Like they'll sometimes place a lot in an area where you can definitely see they're suggesting that, like, oh, the rest of the area around the house could be counted as your yard if you wanted to choose to view it that way, or you could cut it off. And then there's some other lots where you're like, nope, you can definitely tell where the lot ends, like where the where the build part ends, where the grid ends. That's where your lot ends, and you can't extend beyond it. One example I'm thinking about is some of the lots in Bridleton Bay, for example. They have so much space around them that you could, in theory, be like, oh yeah, that's part of the yard. You just can't build there. And then there's some lots in New Crest, for example, that you can do like, oh yeah, there's a definitive where this yard ends. I do think it's kind of interesting to also be able to really create the shape of your lot Once again, I'm kind of like, it's cool, but I don't need it. Overall, I think it's an interesting concept. I'm not wild about it. I think also we don't have too much details. I think if this is what the whole world looks like, if it is an open world and this is what it all kind of looks like, I'm kind of like, okay, it's very odd. It's like a highway meets suburbia kind of feel. I don't know. And it could just because it's really empty, but like this really long road, I'm like, where am I? And that's one thing I've always liked about The Sims 4 is that there's those non-playable homes in the background of a lot of the worlds that kind of help it feel a little bit more fleshed out, as well as it also kind of gives you an idea of like what kind of style you could potentially build in, make the world feel a little bit more cohesive if you so choose. Here we have the curved walls and split level. I saw this one on Twitter too. Also, cars. Are there cars? Oh, and the swing. That's cool. Ooh, that actually looks like trash. So this is cool because this is something. Like I said, I saw this on Twitter already. This is something I think is really cool. We don't have curved walls in The Sims 4 as of right now. I definitely think it's something like that if they truly wanted to. And the way to do split leveling, I'm like, that's actually cool because the way we do split leveling now in The Sims 4 is a little. It's not the most user friendly because you really have to go out of your way, in my opinion. And then also you have the ugly foundation coming through. But I do think this is interesting, and then also this is something I've noticed too because you can have rounded flooring area, whether it be part of your porch or if you want to do a split level like this. But the stairs won't snap to it as of right now. The stairs also don't snap on angles either. There's definitely ways to get around that now because now we have configurable stairs. But overall, like this would be very difficult, near impossible to do. Also, I'm just doing this now, but this grass is ass. And then we have windows curtain resizing, and this one I was actually really excited about because this is something I've always wanted to be able to do in The Sims 4 is be able to resize windows. Sometimes you have a window, you know, this would be perfect, exactly how it is if it was just a little bit bigger, if not also just the next size bigger. I like this too because you get a little bit look on the what the world looks like. Um, Once again, not a lot of snapping, little to no snapping, which is concerning. Um, and this is where I guess I'm getting into my final thoughts and feelings of it. Overall, I think it's very inventive. I think it's very fun looking. I love how much more freedom it looks like it has. One of my issues, I have quite a few actually, but number one is the way it's being marketed. It seems to be strictly addressing issues in The Sims 4 and be like, look what we can do that The Sims 4 can't. And I've never liked marketing um, strategies, marketing plans that aim like that, where they're like, look what you can do in ours that you can't do in the competitor. And the reason for that is because, for one, that can become outdated very quickly. Two, I feel like it's just a little petty, as well as it doesn't also show off what makes you unique or what your angle in your life simulator, your game is gonna be. Because if it's pretty much the same thing as The Sims 4 or any Sims game, but with these additions, it's kind of like, so it's practically The Sims 4, but with some new perks. The next issue I have is I aesthetically I'm not interested in it. So I understand why it looks the way it looks. It looks very simplistic, not as complicated, not as detailed as The Sims 4. And the reason for that is if Paralives was as aesthetically pleasing as The Sims 4, or even as like The Sims 3, then it would be just as buggy, if not more buggy, than The Sims 3. That's kind of the issue with The Sims 3, is that you can do so much in it while not compromising enough of the aesthetics. And then that's where The Sims 4 comes in, where I feel like it kind of finds a really good happy medium where, yes, there's some things that we could do in The Sims 3 that we can't do, but it's nowhere near as laggy, nowhere near does it crash as often. Overall, The Sims 4 runs a lot more smoother than The Sims 3, and that's kind of where Paralives is changing. While The Sims 4 is really into aesthetic and looking nice, Paralives seems to be sacrificing aesthetic for the compromise of giving you a lot more tools in your belt, if that makes sense. And there really isn't a right or wrong answer to that problem, um, in my, I guess, humble opinion. However, I am always going to choose aesthetic over more tools. And the reason for that is, even though you have less tools, it kind of forces you to be a little bit more creative in your builds, kind of think outside the box, in my opinion, of how do you make this look a certain way, how do you make your dream come true within these parameters. I've always been a fan of, there needs to be some kind of parameter, and then in Paralives, they seem to be bringing back or really reeling in on the aesthetic to give you these awesome tools. And I personally would just prefer the aesthetic. That's just me, of course. I am a visual artist who kind of leans more to loving detail, loving flamboyance over the top. I mean, look at the builds I do. I love Victorians, and that's literally what I just described. So I understand why Paralives looks the way it looks. It's pretty much doing the opposite of The Sims 4. However, it's just not up my alley visually. I don't want to spend money on something I'm not going to enjoy looking at. Another issue I have with this game is I think they're promising a lot in the base game. And I'm not saying that they can't live up to it, but in some ways, I'm wondering what they're sacrificing by offering so much at once. And the reason I bring this up is when The Sims 4 came out, there was a lot of things missing from the base game, and the majority of the things missing were added for free. I really want to stress for, like, we got things like pools, toddlers, configurable stairs, the ability to do split flooring, like all of these things we got for free. Terrain tools, free. And a lot of these things were missing in the base game or were added and then removed and then replaced later with better versions. And a lot of people kind of get mad about that, but I'm perfectly fine with all of those missing. The reason I'm fine with all of those things initially missing is because it gave the Sims 4 team to really flesh them out and release them at a later date. And it was really exciting, in my personal opinion. I know some people would have preferred them postpone the release of The Sims 4 and add those all in. I'm kind of in the boat of, I liked getting it for free later and getting a more in-depth version. I fear if they had waited to release The Sims 4, they would have cut corners and toddlers would have not been as interesting, because toddlers in The Sims 4 are the most, my opinion, most realistic and the most interesting to interact with in the Sims franchise, as well as I think the pools look I think the pools are beautiful. I know some people get mad that when you remove the ladder, they don't drown, but I'm also like, that's not realistic to life. That's like not how people drown. Most people, like the majority of the human race, has the ability to pull themselves out of a pool. And what I'm getting at is, I'm worried if we get all of these things right away in the base game, no waiting to add them, they're not gonna be good. They're gonna floppy, they're gonna cut corners, things might not be properly thought through. And that's just kind of my fear. And that's, like I said, I'm one of those people where I will always prefer quality over quantity. So I'm fine with a base game not having a lot up front and them adding things for free and for also purchasable downloads over the years that are very that are quality packs. And that's just how I feel. And that's a worry of mine. And kind of my final thought on all of this ultimately is everything that they've shown so far. I think maybe half of it are things that could be added in Sims 4 pretty easily. For example, I don't think there's any reason The Sims 4 couldn't add rounded walls, or it could change the system and how we do split leveling, seeing as they've already changed a few systems in the game over the years. Overall, is Paralives a competitor for the Sims franchise? I think it could be. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not going to be or that it's not possible. I do think, to remind everyone, The Sims does have 20 plus years of doing this. They kind of have it in the bag, as well as they know when to shake things up. And, for the most part, it's worked out for them. Think about, though, is I was kind of thinking who would continue playing The Sims and who would switch over to Paralives. Not that you have to. I think you could interchange. You could do one or the other. You could do both. But my feeling is people who are more interested in the detail, in people who are really interested in aesthetics, I think are gonna stick with The Sims 4 and The Sims franchise in general. And I think people who are more interested in having more tools in their belt, having access to more features, and maybe don't really care about aesthetics as much, are probably going to switch to or play more of Paralives. With that said, overall, I don't think I'm going to invest in this game. I'm definitely excited to see what comes next of it, what comes next, and I'm definitely going to be watching it. But as of right now, I'm not sold on it, and that's just me. Let me know down below if you're excited for it, what your thoughts and feelings are, as well as if you also feel like it's valid to say that it is a future competitor for The Sims. Alright, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.